what does exercise have to do with nitric oxide levels? And secondly, a lot of people take nitric oxide supplements to improve their exercise capacity. Is it the chicken or the egg, or the egg or the chicken? Which way does it go?
Yeah, so exercise is medicine because it stimulates and activates nitric oxide production. But this only occurs in patients that have some functional capacity to produce nitric oxide. So exercise causes shear stress in the lining of the blood vessel. That increase in shear stress activates the nitric oxide synthase enzyme to make nitric oxide, because the body says, hey, I need to increase the blood supply to these working skeletal muscles to supply additional oxygen and nutrients to meet the increased metabolic demands on that particular vascular bed, whether it's the heart or skeletal muscle, depending on which type of exercise you're doing. So it activates nitric oxide production. It causes angiogenesis, so you're getting new blood vessels formed. You get mitochondrial biogenesis, so you get more mitochondria generating more ATP more efficiently with less oxygen. So there's both an acute effect on the exercise ability to produce nitric oxide, but also the adaptive effects. Long-term exercise shown to upregulate nitric oxide synthase expression, increase the activity of the enzyme, thereby creating better vascularity, better oxygen delivery, better tissue perfusion, and also more mitochondria generating more energy over time. And so that all of the protective effects of exercise can be explained through a nitric oxide dependent mechanism. But the problem is in people that have exercise intolerance, for instance, people with ischemic heart disease or angina, that they can't make nitric oxide, they can't exercise because they've lost the ability to produce nitric oxide. When they begin to exercise, they can't dilate the coronary arteries, they get ischemia, and they get ischemic pain known as angina. So those are patients that clearly cannot make nitric oxide upon exercising. And that's called exercise-induced angina. And it's because their body can't make nitric oxide. Mm. So in those patients, obviously they're given organic nitrates like nitroglycerin or isodil that are metabolized into nitric oxide. And that's how those drugs work in relieving the ischemic pain of angina, because these drugs are producing nitric oxide, dilate the coronary arteries, and relieve the ischemia during exercise.
So this is in relation with exercise, but people take nitric oxide supplements or herbals or beet powder, beet juice before exercising to be able to exercise more efficiently. And I mean, I've looked at the studies a little bit. There are studies that support the claim and a couple of studies that do not support the claim. What is your experience with this, or your knowledge with your research into this?
Well, unfortunately, in the dietary supplement and sports nutrition industry, it's the wild, wild west. I mean, you got companies out there making outlandish claims with really no clinical evidence to support anything they're saying. And I've tested these products. Most of the nitric oxide products on the market, I've actually put to the test. And unfortunately, about 95 to 98% of the products on the market do absolutely nothing in terms of improving nitric oxide production. But yet they're making these claims. So there's two ways the body does this. So the beetroot products, beets hit the market in 2012, after the 2012 London Olympic Games, when it was realized that a lot of the athletes were drinking liters of beetroot juice. And there was some studies starting to come out that beetroot, because of the nitrate content, could actually improve nitric oxide production and improve performance. So then the market was flooded with beetroot products. And I've tested all these, and 98% of the beetroot products out there are just dead beet products. They don't provide any nitric oxide support. They don't contain any detectable nitrate or nitrite, and they don't do anything except turn your pee and poop pink and cause a lot of gastric discomfort. So to answer your question, some can improve performance, but unfortunately, most of them on the market do not. And now there's companies selling beet gummies and chews, and you cannot put nitric oxide in a gummy or a chew, and you can't. It just makes no sense biochemically. But yet these companies are selling a lot of these products to consumers that are just being deceived and really defrauded. So what we do is completely different. We try to take the science of nitric oxide, what we've learned over the past 20 years, and really put into place some safe and effective nitric oxide product technologies that actually can enhance nitric oxide production. Actually, if your body can't make nitric oxide, they do it for you. And we can actually restore the body's ability to make nitric oxide on its own. And I think that's where what we do is completely different than all these other yahoos out there trying to sell nitric oxide products and make a profit. We're trying to deliver the best science in the market. Other companies are trying to make a dollar.
Right. So I think we're going to talk about some of those. And I believe you had some topical applications, you had some oral applications. And can you guide me through what the products that you work with or do you help manufacture?
Sure.
Why are they different from, let's say, a regular beet powder?
Yep. Well, one, you have to go back to 2007, where we published really the first paper that showed that nitric oxide was a hormone. And what that means is that once nitric oxide is produced in the body, in a single biological compartment, it has distal effects. So prior to our 2007 Proceedings National Academy of Science paper, it was thought that nitric oxide could only act in the cell in which it was produced or a neighboring cell. And we call this autocrine or paracrine in the cell or a nearby cell in which it's produced. So when we create nitric oxide, be it in the oral cavity or in the stomach when we swallow our saliva, that nitric oxide that's produced acts like a hormone. So similar to testosterone being produced in the gonads of men, it has systemic effects, right? Similarly, nitric oxide has systemic effects. So that was the epiphany and the eureka moment for me in science was, oh, well, if nitric oxide is a hormone, I just got to deliver this authentic gas in a single biological compartment. So I started developing orally disintegrating tablets that we could generate a certain amount of nitric oxide over a specified period of time that would completely recapitulate what the body would normally see. And that's how we started kind of the metrics of what we would do to develop a nitric oxide product. So if your body can't make nitric oxide, then we do it for you. But that was just part of the story because I didn't want this to be like hormone replacement therapy. If you start giving nitric oxide, it completely shuts down the body's ability to make it. And now you become dependent upon exogenous nitric oxide. As a physiologist, that's not our approach. What we want to do is understand the mechanism of disease to the extent that we could fix it. So in that technology, we go, okay, we know what it takes to recouple the NOS enzyme. We kind of know the electrical potential that's required to extract an electron from tetrahydrobiopterin, and that's the rate-limiting step in nitric oxide production. So we can provide that electric potential in that lozenge, recouple the NOS enzyme, and now we can actually improve endothelial function and improve the body's ability to make nitric oxide. And then we also developed this as an orally disintegrating tablet that has a resident time of about 5 to 6 minutes. So now we're waking up the oral microbiome, the nitrite reducing bacteria that are responsible for producing nitric oxide from our diet. So our technology is completely different than anybody else out there because it's the only technology in the world that actually generates nitric oxide gas. Yeah.
Question, sorry to interrupt. The slow release, is that a function in itself in your situation?
Yeah, so it's what we try to do is recapitulate physiology. So the endothelial production of NO is the second-to-second regulation of blood flow and the regulation of circulation to specific vascular beds. And so we know through radiolabeled isotope experiments how much nitric oxide is produced in a healthy human over 24 hours. And so we always try to give back and restore that normal production. I never want to give to the body something that it hasn't seen or at doses that it wouldn't see. So we try to recapitulate physiological signaling mechanisms. And now we're able to quantify the amount of nitric oxide and nitrite that's produced from the oral microbiome through giving certain dietary foods through certain dietary patterns and looking at the inefficiency of this reduction into nitric oxide. So everything we do is stoichiometrically based on producing amount of nitric oxide that the body would normally see. And that's the basis for what we do. And so that requires certain things, right? It requires a certain threshold of nitrate. It requires the oral microbiome. It requires a functional NOS enzyme. So everything we do with our product technology produces nitric oxide when it's administered. We can quantify it, we can verify it, we can detect it with a gas phase nitric oxide analyzer. But we also have these functional devices that we talked about earlier that can demonstrate that we've actually improved the body's ability to make nitric oxide. And we do tongue scrapings, metagenomic studies, and look at the oral microbiome and how we can improve the diversity and the efficiency of nitric oxide being produced in the oral cavity.
So where's the problem with the mouthwash? What happens with mouthwashes? Isn't that great for you?
Now, well, look, you got to believe the commercials. I don't watch TV that much, but when I do, I see that these Listerine.
I was being sarcastic.
Yeah. So it says they kill 99.99% of the bacteria in your mouth. And that's true. And that's not a good thing. The microbiome, the bacteria that live in and on our body provide 3 million gene products. I mean, they outnumber on human cells 10 to 1. The human genome only codes for 23,000 gene products. So these bacteria that live in and on our body are designed to do things that we as humans can't do. It's a true symbiotic relationship. So when you destroy the microbiome, whether it's the gut microbiome, the oral microbiome, the vaginal microbiome, or even the skin microbiome, bad things happen. These bacteria are there to protect us, and we destroy the microbiome to our own demise. So you cannot use mouthwash. The more that we published on this 10 years ago, the more diverse the microbiome, the health of the oral cavity, and we know this oral systemic link, people with poor oral health have higher incidence of heart attack and stroke. If you have good oral health, it contributes to cardiovascular health. So it's not just the bad guys causing problems, it's the disruption of the good guys. And in fact, if you maintain a healthy microbiome, you don't have the opportunistic pathogens around because the good guys keep the bad guys at bay.
Thanks for watching, and I appreciate you as a valuable viewer. And if you liked this segment, you can watch all of the different individual segments or the whole podcast to have a broader understanding on this topic. Just check the links in the description or what you see on the screen right now. I'm Dr. Umer Khan. Looking forward to seeing you again. Thank you.